Welcome, everyone, to the August 8th, 2023 council meeting. As a reminder, this meeting will be live streamed, recorded, and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound's website at www.parrysound.ca. Prior to the open session, council met for a closed session. It was moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McDonald, pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act. SO 2001 C25 is amended. Council of the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound moved to a special meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to the following. B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, board appointment, committee member concerns. D, labor relations or employee negotiations, joint job evaluation committee recommendations. And K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Consideration of requests to manage Parry Sound and Area Industrial Park water and wastewater services. And that was carried and the meeting was held. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. Is the agenda. There is an addition. It's item 953. And it has to do with the OSM conference, and it will be later on the agenda. Any other additions or prioritization? No? Okay, mover and seconder. Councillor McCann, Councillor McDonald. That the council agenda for August 8th, 2023 be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, may I have a mover and seconder for the minutes? Councillor Bileski and Councillor Keith. That the minutes of the regular council meeting held July 18th, 2023 be approved as circulated. Any questions, concerns, or comments on the minutes? No? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Questions of staff. I do have a couple tonight. I'll start with. One is to Chief Thompson. If you could, Councillor Borneman sent me a copy of a Facebook message, and I was contacted by email from an individual as well about a portion of what some people think is the Town of Parry Sounds Trail. If you're looking at the bay down Champagne Street, it would be on the left-hand side. Chief Thompson, can you explain why that has been closed off?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the portion of the trail south of the Champagne Dock is very similar to the trails that are north of the salt docks at the north end of town. Those are actually trespass trails. They're not on property that's owned by the town. There are trails that have developed from the community over years of use on private property. So the trail that where the gate has been put up just south of Champagne Dock is on private property. And as far as I know, it has never been, or for many, many years has never been town property in that particular area. I did see myself as well a social media post that was indicating town had sold a waterfront access. That's not the case. It was private property previously and remains private property. There are development applications on the south side of the harbor in that particular area in the planning department currently. And actually, I think we'll be able to improve the situation because staff is working with the developers in those particular areas, and we're actually getting a great deal of cooperation within their plans to include public access to trails and in some cases to the waterfront in those areas. So it should be a net gain as we move through the development processes for those areas, and we'll be able to extend the public access to the trails and the waterfront in the area south of Champagne Dock in the future.
Good, thank you. And then what next one is for Mr. Kearns. about an event in September.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We wanted to make sure that council was aware. Our local roads association, so we are the West Parry Sound Road Supervisors Association, is part of a provincial organization, the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors, that holds an annual provincial rodeo to test truck drivers' skills in a friendly competition provincially. So this year will be the inaugural local association rodeo, which is planned to be held at the Salt Dock on September 8th of next month. It's very close. So we will be, the various municipalities are approaching their councils to see if we can recruit 2 members of council from each of the area municipalities to serve as judges through the various competitions. So it should be a friendly day of competition, with the top 2 being sent to the provincial rodeo, and it fails me as to where it is right at the moment, but on September 20th, so shortly afterwards. So this is something that we're pretty excited about, because it has been talked about for many years at the local level, and this year we've recruited enough volunteers to make it happen. So anyway, we'll be polling council for a couple of volunteers at the very least, and the other municipalities, area municipalities, 7 are doing the same. So there's an obstacle course, there's some written tests, there's some truck inspection portions of the rodeo. So it serves as a good training opportunity for staff as well, heading into our winter season. So we're really looking forward to it.
Good, thank you. September 8th. Yeah. September 8th. Yeah. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. Counselor, I think Counselor Borneman, did you have a question? Yeah, first and then Counselor McCann. So, yeah.
First of Mr. Harris, I think it was in early June, we passed a bylaw with respect to fees and charges and development charges. And we were to bring something back with respect to deferrals in certain instances. When will that be happening, Mr. Harris?
Through the mayor to Councilor Borneman. You're correct, and our hope being that we'd have it at probably at this meeting. There's a couple of things. We're having difficulty getting time from the town's lawyer in making sure that the bylaws and the agreements that need to be entered into are all appropriate and can be enforced if need be. The other thing, we've also, the deputy treasurer in the finance department has left just over a month ago, and so the audit started. So that's the reason we're not able to have it. The next meeting is September, so Miss Phillips and I have been working on that. So hopefully we're able to get it for September, but it's still the intent.
Well, you could always visit the lawyer at his cottage or wherever that is, Mr. Harris. And my other question was for Mr. Cairns or Mr. Bonanza. About a year ago, you gentlemen and I took a stroll up Bow Street with a disabled lady and looked at the challenges that she faced with respect to some issues out there. And I'm wondering what progress we're making in making repairs to those push buttons and other impediments on Bow Street.
Through your worship. So that was a very informative and educational experience, frankly. Seeing some of the challenges that different folks with different mobility challenges and that sort of thing experience. Sometimes we take it for granted when we just walk across a crosswalk. So we did look immediately at changing some of the signal timings to ensure that there was a little bit longer for folks to make their way across. We have started replacing some of the access buttons and that sort of thing. There are some challenges in retrofitting. Parts have been we're experiencing, and I hate to say it sounds like a buzzword now, but the supply chain issue problem with acquiring parts and pieces. So immediately we were able to change some of the signal timing to accommodate some of the to facilitate safe access for everybody crossing the street. And we will continue to do some of the repairs to the sidewalks. I know it was enlightening too, on Bow Street in particular, we have concrete on one side, we have asphalt on the other. A lot of folks using mobility devices prefer the asphalt, although it is not really a construction standard for sidewalks. But it seems to be more appealing as an accessible pathway, and understanding what the implications of the traditional sidewalk installations have on all of those devices. Again, you take it for granted when you walk across the cracks and the expansion joints and that sort of thing. But when your device hits every one of them, certainly that resonated with us. So I think we will look at what changes we can make. There are provincial standards in sidewalk construction. The way that street's laid out right now, when we're looking at any improvements in Bow Street, perhaps it makes sense to have an accessible pathway and a sidewalk on one side, pathway on the other. But we continue to work on improving our crossings to ensure that the buttons in particular are accessible, that they make sense. Some of them we're like I said, we're having real challenges with trying to retrofit. We need electrical feeds to them right now. Maybe one day there'll be some wireless options, hopefully, that'll allow us to install them directly adjacent to where the crosswalk is. But we have made some improvements where it was feasible, and we will continue to work on options to make it better all the way around.
Okay. Councilor McCann, then Councilor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a comment and a couple of questions. Mr. Mayor, I'm glad you asked about the portion of the fitness trail that's been closed off. And Mr. Thompson for clarifying that, because I too came across some rather angry posts about the fact that the town just closed this off. So I'm glad that that was clarified. I would like to invite the public, and I'm taking the liberty of speaking on behalf of staff and council, is that if you see something and you don't know, you don't understand, please contact us. That's what we're here for. Ask about it, and we'll get the answer for you. If we don't know, we'll find out. And another misunderstanding that was sort of tied in with all of this scuttlebutt was the state of the salt docks, and the fact that the salt delivery was delayed this year, and had the town sold the salt docks, and what's going in there and what are we doing with it? So could you clarify, Mr. Thompson, that we've done no such thing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm actually gonna ask Mr. Rand to, he's here and he's to answer this question. He does act as the management person who's in charge of the salt docks.
Okay.
And he may be able to speak to that. I know he was focused on something when you asked your question. You may want to repeat it for him, but I think it's a great opportunity for him to answer that question for you.
Okay. Did you get that all, Jeremy?
If you could repeat the question, I would
Okay.
appreciate that. Thank you.
So in on the Facebook scuttlebutt, there was some concern that the salt docks, and this has come up before in the past, that there was some thought that there was a delay in the salt delivery. The town has sold the salt docks. The condominium association people are lobbying council to do something with it. I don't know where all of this is coming from, so I thought it would be a great idea to clarify that today and reassure our residents that the salt dock property does belong to the town, and that the company still is under contract and will be for a while. So I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Through your worship to Councillor McCann, staff have also received a couple of questions similar to that. There were some inquiries. We were able to verify that yes, the town does own that property. We do have a current agreement with, I believe it's SIFTO. That agreement does have a few years left on it. There will be a time where obviously it will be renewed, and there will be some discussion at that point. To my knowledge, there's nothing really else to add to the conversation. Certainly if if the public does have questions, we're open to answering those. I suspect there may be some anxieties towards potential development in the area. There's been a lot of linking that property to potentially the BD land, so that may be where it came from. However, at this point, we don't have any formal plans submitted, so that has been our answer to members of the public. But again, we asked them if, you know, in 6 months' time, they want some clarification. We'd rather communicate directly than have, you know, rumors and things like that spread around.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much for that. And I'm sure that that's reassuring to everyone. Yeah, and this might be for Mr. Kearns then, on Church Street, there, it looks like there's some new poles with, some, traffic lights, well, or maybe walk lights. Just kind of wondering what's going on there. I think it's around the old Children's Aid building.
Through your worship. So yes, so there's new poles mounted now. The pole mounts were installed a little while ago. Again, we were waiting on parts, unfortunately, and in pieces. So that's to facilitate a mid-block crossing because the actual sidewalk extends from the corner just by the fire hall up to that location where the poles are. So there is a crosswalk going in to facilitate pedestrian traffic crossover at that point safely to the sidewalk on the I guess that's the east side of Church Street. So that's what those poles are there for.
I think that's a great idea because correct me if I'm wrong, but in the wintertime, the town doesn't maintain that portion on Church.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilor McDonald?
Thank you, worship. Actually, Councillor McCann asked one of my questions already. In regards to the gazebo at the town dock, has there been any progress in regards to work being done on that? Thanks to Mr. Kearns.
Through your worship, yes, we're just waiting on the contractor availability. So it is scheduled and I'm probably due for an update this week from them. Contractor was busy at the Stocky Center, doing a lot of work for the town at the time, and they committed to doing the gazebo work as well. I just need to get an update on timing.
Excellent. Thank you. And another question I have, I guess to Mr. Kearns as well. The Cascade Street Bridge has reopened. I just wanted to inquire as to if everything went according to budget, how that worked out.
Through your worship, yes. A short answer is yes. Everything went very well. The bridge obviously opened ahead of schedule. The work was all completed appropriately and adequately. And actually, there was some different materials that we employed or that the contractor employed that our engineering firm was very impressed with, just in terms of some of the concrete that was used on the part that no one can see, hopefully, because you should not be under the bridge. But self-consolidating concrete was used underneath that gave us a better finished product. And actually, so there were some very good things that came out of that as well. So.
Excellent, thank you. And one more question I have in regards to the Canada Day fireworks potentially being rescheduled. Do we have an idea on when that would take place, Mr. Thompson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, on behalf of Ms. McNamara, the fireworks have been rescheduled for Labor Day weekend. I'm not going to say exactly specifically which day. I'm not sure if that's actually been ironed out yet, but they will be held on Labor Day weekend. And that is the holdover from the restricted fire zone and when we couldn't have the fireworks on Canada Day. So it'll be a new, interesting type of celebration and we'll try something different and hopefully exciting.
Great, thank you.
I remember when we were kids, we used to let fireworks off on Labor Day or whatever, before you went back to school. And there was the schoolhouse that you used to burn down or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, anyway. Okay, Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Cairns. Just one short question. A few years ago, the film industry in Parry Sound seemed to be really bustling and booming, and we were really happy. What's the situation this year, please?
Through your worship. So as a matter of fact, currently there is a film shooting a sequel to the film that was, and I can't tell you the date that it was shot. So it's called Return to Wickensburg is the new version. Wickensburg was the original version shot here in Parry Sound. So they have begun shooting. They have been shooting at some private residence locations in town. Today, I believe they were shooting at Wabno Beach. And they have a couple of other locations or a couple of other shoots scheduled on municipal property. And so we're excited to see them back. Hopefully it's a trend post COVID. There are some indications that their film budgets are being well spent in town. During our processes, we make those inquiries to understand. So there is some substantial benefit to expenditures happening here in town, which we're happy to see. So they've been very good at working with us in terms of, obviously the beach is a very popular location in August. So we worked with them to ensure parking wasn't going to become a major issue. And I have to say that they've been very good at working with us. So.
Councillor Ashford.
Just as an update, the fireworks are September 1st. They're on the Friday and I will bring the schoolhouse. So we'll be ready for that. My question is just if there's an update on how on what's going on with George Street and where everything's at with that.
Through your worship. So that we have received just recently some applications to install further services. And actually today I made an inquiry with the developer to understand what their timelines are. So I unfortunately, I haven't received a response to that as of yet. They have made some progress as far as the street goes, and we are certainly encouraging them to expedite the street work so that we can hopefully open up access to George Street completely to encourage folks to get up to the museum from both ends. But I do want, actually, I'll take the opportunity to mention that George Street is open from the other end. So certainly visits to the museum and to Tower Hill are easily achieved from that end of George Street. So don't hesitate because one end is closed. That's all.
Anyway, Councillor McCann.
It was just a quick one that when Mr. Kearns was talking about parking and movies and such, and maybe this might be for Mr. Thompson as well. There were concerns from residents on Wabano Road about a lot of congestion down there, but I just want to give you an opportunity to tell the public that that your crews were busy trying to iron the problems out, and that the movie crews were very cooperative to make that as smooth as possible.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Ms. Kruger and Ms. McNamara worked very closely on the parking management issues that were occurring on the Wabano Road area. And as you mentioned, the movie crews were very cooperative. They put in place parking at the BOCC for the majority of the vehicles, and they used shuttles to move employees and staff and actors back and forth to where they were needed on Wabeek Street. And that helped relieve significantly the pressures. As Mr. Kearns mentioned before, the same method was utilized at the Wabano Beach shoot. And Ms. McNamara and Ms. Kruger are continuing to work with the movie crew anywhere else where we might have similar issues.
Wonderful. We do want them to come back, so that's great.
Councillor Borneman.
Mr. Cairns, I want to revisit George Street for a second. The town Public Works kind of holds himself to a standard when we're undertaking work, and we lay out a schedule, a start and a stop thing, sort of as was done with the bridge recently. It seems to me that work at George Street's a relatively small job, and it's been underway since pretty early in the spring, and the folks in the neighborhood have endured quite a long process through the summertime. I'm not, this isn't to blame you or your staff because you're not doing the work, but when people approach us with these jobs, do we hold them to any standard of scheduling? Do we lay out to them timeframes that we think are reasonable for these works to be undertaken and completed, or is it just sort of done on a happenstance or whim of the will or whatever? Like, how does this work?
Through your worship. So that was the reason for my inquiry earlier today. We had a discussion about the original application for road closure was for a specific time period, which has now been exceeded. So that was the reason for my inquiry, and I will follow up. So there was an expectation that the contractor had anticipated 8 weeks of road closure. We're well beyond that now. So we will be following up with the developer to encourage them to let us know how quickly that road work can be completed and the road reopened.
Follow up, Council Barnum.
So I'm just gonna say that anytime that the municipality has a contract with a contractor to undertake that kind of work, there are generally penalties imposed if they exceed these periods by, a significant amount of times. And I wonder if something like that is contemplated ever when it's a private sector ordeal.
Through your worship, I can't speak to it specifically. The road work was undertaken as part of their development proposal. So there may be Planning Act implications, but that's certainly something that we can have a discussion and figure out that process going forward and certainly get back to you on it. I'll connect with Mr. Rand and we'll figure that part out.
Yeah, I get it that we're kind of trying to balance things here. We want the growth, we want the development, but we don't want to punish the people who are in the neighborhood either.
We're good now? Okay, all the questions asked? Correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have 4 items of correspondence. The first is from the clerk of the town of Mono with a resolution of support for the town of Parry Sound's resolution, a previous resolution 2023-079, which called for resources to combat opioid mental health and homelessness crisis. The second letter is from Dr. Carol Zimbalati, the acting medical officer of health for the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit, with a response to that same resolution of the town of Parry Sound, which called for federal and provincial funding to deal with mental health addictions, specifically opioids and homelessness. But the resolution also called upon the health unit to establish a regional coalition to amplify regional concerns and investigate potential strategies and resources. Dr. Zimbalati's response then includes the committees that deal with these various issues, the purpose of the committees, and then the member agencies or individuals who are involved. And so by that description, by that table, is expressing how those issues, homelessness, addictions, mental health, are handled on a regional basis by that network. So without saying it, I expect that they're not going to pursue this further, that this is the response, that there are various organizations working towards these issues.
I think the one thing though, to go with that is that they could use more provincial and federal funding for those agencies. Because there is a lack of it and they could get a lot more done.
Yes, Member Garvey, the final paragraph of the letter from Dr. Zimbalati identified that indeed continued advocacy for the provincial and federal support is required to maintain all that.
Yeah.
So acknowledging that. The third item is a letter from Stephen Hayter, resident of Parry Sound, asking that, making a request for reopening of parking adjacent to the salt dock and what he's calling the salt dock forest, that there used to be parking there and that seems to not be available anymore, and would consider that useful and helpful for people to access the forest trails. And the last letter is from Carrie Mutri. A related request that the Salt Dock Road be brought up to residential standard with sidewalks, improved lighting, and posted and enforced speed limits. And those are the items of correspondence.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any deputations tonight, but there are the two letters that are written. There are people. Councillor Ashford.
Can I ask a question about one of the letters?
Yeah.
I was just wondering why when the condos were built, the new condos down behind the salt dock, why the developer wasn't required to put a sidewalk in at that point to connect it up to our sidewalk system. And if the condo boards have any ideas on how to raise that kind of money to be able to do it at this point after the fact.
I guess somebody at the table there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think I can speak to a portion of that question. I'm not quite sure with regards to the condo board question, though. That's a little bit out of our realm. With regards to the lighthouse condominium, part of the requirement of their site plan was to put in the trail that you see that runs up along the side of their property. So that was a requirement with regards to their site plan, and it takes it to a suitable crosswalk across Salt Dock Road to the trespass trails that exist at the point of where the letter is referencing. So that was a requirement for their site plan. And in the meantime, in addition to that, the town installed a additional 5 or 6 parking spots adjacent to the spots that the developer was required to put in, and has also tied together the trail system so that it now leads down to the Salt Dock proper, and actually is a very smooth transition to the main fitness trail that exists in that area. Is there further clarification you're looking for?
Is this an oversight that the sidewalk wasn't put in by the developer at that time to kind of connect up to, I guess it would be further up in Wood Street, or where would it connect?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to development applications, as you get further off site, it's significantly more difficult to require infrastructure to be installed with regards to things like the sidewalks that I think you're describing. Other instances where the site plan process is a negotiation process. We work with developers to try to achieve features for the community good, as well as things that are fair and objective for the developer to install. So you often can't require, in this instance, sidewalks far off site. They can be required within the direct vicinity, which in this case, I was referring to the pathway that's connecting the fitness trail up along the side of the development. So that's what was required in this particular instance.
Thank you.
I know that the developer also had to do some stormwater sewer work or whatever as well, that the town required him to do, which cost a bit of money, because that was taking care of the water coming off their property. So, but what I was going to say is we don't have any deputations tonight scheduled, but there are 2 people in the audience that wrote letters, and if they want, they can have a couple minutes at the microphone to say what they want to follow up. So Mr. Header, you're welcome to. Oh.
I can't resist one thing that came up today on Church Street because we live there. The sidewalk there in the winter time has snow at least that high. So you cannot get to the traffic light. There's no way how you can get there. And us and our neighbors use Church Lane at the back, because otherwise you have to go and run across full traffic. But that's not adjusted because we live there. I couldn't resist to clarify that the snow is that high by the end of the winter on the sidewalk. And you can get to the traffic light. But do you know what we are talking about, this parking that been there for over 20 years? Can you remember? And what has happened is that a number of us, including me, but many other people, stopped using the rugged trail, and we went over to the Rotary Algonquin Lakeside Trail that is already in the summertime overly used by anybody from baby carriages to dogs on leashes to bicycles at great speed. So it would be nice to be able to go back to the rugged trail. And what happens is that the parking is on the other side, much further down. So you have to, and I walk with a cane, you have to cross with a dog and a cane, with 2 lanes of traffic going at a high speed. And there are a number of young men, mainly, who drive 50, 60 kilometers at least. They go down to the salt docks and they turn back and come back. In the winter time, it's the large trucks that come on icy roads, and it will be very difficult for them to stop. So for over 20 years, there was about 4 or 5 parking spots, and there's still gravel and other things. And I tried to find out, we tried to find out, because there were other people, we didn't really get an answer why they had to close it. And the request would be, it's 4 or 5 parking spots, and 1 or 2, if you feel like, could be made handicap parking. But it would save possible accidents, because it's very difficult to cross on time when people drive at that speed, or as I said, in the winter time, when the trucks ride on full load on icy roads. And the question is, why was the place closed?
I don't know, but I do know that with regard to sidewalks and lighting, I have spoken to Mr. Kearns and to Mr. Harris about eventually putting that in the budget. Mr. Kearns made me aware that the road that exists there right now is not entirely on town property, and then town property is shifted in other places as well. So right now they're trying to get, I believe, a surveyor in to figure out where the road actually is and what is actually town property as well. So the road was put through many years ago, and I guess because it's been there since I was a little kid, and that pretty much that same configuration, and my guess is the road was put in, but there was no thought to people's properties or where the road actually lined up. So I know Mr. Kearns is trying to figure that all out so that we can do the work down there that needs to be done and move forward. Mr. Kearns, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure, Your Worship. I can add a little bit to the challenge in the wintertime. I know that the fitness trail becomes a snowmobile trail in the wintertime. And the particular portion that we're talking of is where the snowmobile groomer crosses and enters into the rest of the trail network. And there were some indications from the snowmobile club. They actually were unable to groom at points. They had their groomers stuck behind cars that were parked across the end of the trail where it came out from there. So in discussions during the development process with the lighthouse, condominium development, we talked about the configuration of the trail, and had that opportunity to add additional spots. So we actually ended up with more spots that were available. I realized they're not directly adjacent, because part of the other problem was in the wintertime, outside of the groomer issue, if the cars are parked there, folks coming up the trail, if they're actually walking on the fitness trail, which, as I mentioned before, becomes a snowmobile trail in the wintertime, they're actually forced to walk along the edge of the road behind some of those cars as well. So when staff looked at it, it seemed outside of this particular issue that Mr. Hitter is referring to, having cars back out on that corner from parking also presented some challenges in terms of traffic coming down around the corner, sight lines and visibility. So that's where the movement of the spots came. They were replaced with asphalt spots, felt to be a little bit more safe directly adjacent to the trail at that point. And I realized that it's very difficult for staff to contemplate all the circumstances of all the users. So it certainly wasn't any intention to cause issues to some, but it was felt to be a net benefit overall. But in the wintertime, the groomer has experienced issues. They actually had a groomer stuck for a number of hours on the water plant side, and they were unable to go again because somebody had parked there and left their vehicle. So.
Mayor,
Yes.
just very quickly, I fully agree with you, and there was always a no parking sign there where the groomer come. And anybody who parked there could have got a ticket, and they were not supposed to park there. And the other one is, your worship also would know that we had huge big signs there, private property, no trespassing. And they've been there for 20 years. And if you talk to BTs, they not only welcome people, but they help to keep the trails open. The signs are there for liability purposes, that if I break my leg, I couldn't sue them because there was the no trespassing sign. And they've been there for, as I say, for 20 years. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Councilor McCann.
So I'm just looking for clarification, Stephen. You don't get away that easy. So you're talking about parking on the side so that you don't have to cross over the Salt Dock Road?
2 lanes of fast moving traffic, and the young people, they go down and turn around at sometimes 60, 70 kilometers an hour. And in the winter time, there are the big salt trucks coming. So you have to cross 2 lanes.
Yeah.
And then you also have to go at the side of the road to get there, one side or the other.
So you're talking about accessing the trails beyond the salt docks, like where the on the Beatty property?
To go to the trails.
The rugged
that-
trail?
Any of the trails that are in the forest.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And as I say, people cycle there, they walk their dogs there. And in the winter time, they go snowshoeing and others. But there are lots of people from town who use it.
Can you park down by, and I know it's a bit of a walk down, but what about parking down at the actual salt dock pad? Can you park there and then walk back up on that side to access the trail system? I don't know, I'm asking, but you're showing. Okay, so that's why I acknowledge the distance, yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
And when I wore younger men's clothes, it will be no problem.
Yeah.
But Now, it's safe to walk in the forest because there are no trucks or no cars.
Yeah.
And walking up from the salt docks, you would still have these people whizzing by you.
So I'm was just wondering, rather than sending these folks away with just hoping something will be done, can we have maybe at least promise some sort of a contingency that we could report back to them at some point? What about, we talk about crosswalks and they're becoming more popular, even something like that down there, would that be something that would help to sort of calm the traffic when you're, I don't know, I'm asking.
Mr. Kearns.
Through your worship. Certainly crosswalks help people cross the road. It's a little bit unconventional because it's leading to from a municipal trail to a trail that accesses trespass trails. So it's a little bit unconventional from that perspective. And if I could just I just want to clarify, because the rugged trail's been kind of used interchangeably. The rugged trail is a completely separate trail that is located on municipal property at the bottom end of the salt dock along the shore. Just, I didn't want to have any confusion there. So,
Okay.
That 66 feet that they had in order to unload wood in the 19th century.
The other point that we might want to mention is that the Beatty property has been sold. And we don't know what the intentions of the new users, the new owners are. And
I didn't know that. No.
so I don't know. Someday it could be like the situation we have on Champagne Street where all of a sudden now it's blocked off. We don't know. So yeah, it's becoming a little bit of an unknown. All right, Councillor Borneman.
Well, I was just gonna ask if Mr. Cairns, when he does have his survey completed, if we could have an update from there and maybe we can conjure how we can move forward at that point with respect to sidewalks and crosswalks and lighting at least.
Yeah. That's hopefully the plan. Councillor McCann, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I was just wondering, and I don't know if this is the time or the place, but you mentioned about the BD property being sold and the uncertainty. Is it not my understanding that there is a shoreline property that is owned by the town, and that this council as well as other councils have done their best to keep that open to the public just before Facebook gets hold of all this again?
That was what was mentioned. That is the rugged shoreline trail at the end of the salt dock. That is-
Exactly, but you're talking about the BD property that goes, what, above or over than from that then? You're the kid, you're the one that was here when you were a kid. I lived up north.
The Beatty property is behind the rugged shoreline, but it comes out onto Salt Dock Road.
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so.
And
The other
your
one we-
worship, wasn't it, because you grew up here, that at one point the previous generation of the Beatties wanted to get that shoreline and the town rightly refused to sell it to them.
Yeah, because back in the logging days, as a little bit of history, it was an advantage for the loggers to be able to tie up on the shore. So the shore road allowances were created, so you were able to tie your boom up on public property and instead of trespassing. And you will notice pins sometimes when you walk that trail out of whatever that are big eyes, whatever in the rock, and that's where they used to tie the booms up to.
Right.
And then they were moved into the mills to get cut up.
Back in the days when you were a kid.
No, I was before.
Thank you.
That old, thank goodness. Thank you, Mr. Header. Okay, reports. We'll start with, oh, I thought you were shaking your head no.
No.
Okay, Miss Mutry, you're.
Oh,
you're-
I can answer some questions, I think, that as a result of my letter, you may wonder, is the condominium corporation behind my letter? No, they're not. I've been in touch with the corporation and they just say that it's now town's business. So I happen to have a condominium probably that's the closest to the road. I hear the traffic. I know that it's a very busy road. I walk the road. I know that there are gullies on either side of the road that there are accidents waiting to happen for people to turn an ankle. I think they were taken care of last week though, with that great big washout we had down that road. And then you came and filled those gullies in. Thank you very much. I can live with those gullies filled in. That's what I'm concerned about. But the traffic is a problem, but it's 10 people in Honda Civics that have been souped up, modified mufflers, and they are all over town. So I feel it personally, and my dog, who has a sound sensitivity, really feels it. But I don't know how you can get around that. As far as the lighting goes, it'll happen at some point. We need a better light just to get into building C. And I'm working on that. So mainly, I think I wanted just to raise some consciousness, but I don't think I need to. Thank you. I really liked what the town did before the washout to that area that was at the very bottom of Salt Dock Road. You took those great big cement conduits out or whatever they were. You put in a park bench. Wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oops.
Okay. Now we'll go to reports. Councilor McDonald. Okay.
July 20th, attended Poutine Feast at the Town Docks, the second year for this event. And it was steady with traffic and visitors. It was great to see and hope it returns for next year. July the 20th again, attended Industrial Park Board meeting. We're facing some challenges, but we're working through them as we go. So far, not a lot to report for August. Town has been busy with tourists. Cruise ships continue to be a draw. And this Saturday, we will see both the Viking Octanus and the Pearl Mist in port at the same time. The Tuesday market has also been a big draw for the large variety of vendors. Plenty of foot traffic downtown. It was very busy today. It's also happy to see Cascade Street Bridge project finish ahead of schedule and open in time for the long weekend. Big thanks to Public Works and Mr. Bonazza for your efforts in seeing this through in a timely manner. And I'd also like to commend Ms. McNamara and Ms. Young on their success of the Zero to Hero program and being able to restore swim lessons and lifeguards at Wabano Beach. I know this proved to be challenging coming out of COVID, and this resourceful initiative paid off. So well done to everyone that was involved in that. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilor Borneman.
Yeah, along with Councillor McDonald and Councillor Ashford, I've attended 3 separate meetings of the Industrial Park Board meeting since our last meeting. We do have some challenges. The tender for the capital works is now out, I understand. And that will come forward shortly. The only other thing we've had pretty broad discussion tonight. So the only other thing that I think that I need to mention in my report is I believe it's Friday, the 18th, or is it the 18th? Okay, Saturday, the 9th, the 19th, the Georgia or the Biosphere folks are having an EV car display or vehicle display at the Stocky Center for those of you who may be interested in moving towards electrification. I think it's worthwhile going to have a peek if nothing else. Thank you.
Councilor McCann.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bornum, did you want to mention the fly-in at the airport? I think that comes up before our next meeting as well.
I've mentioned that in the last. I think I've mentioned that in my last 3 reports, but
You just want to
thank
get out
you.
of, you just want to get out of making hamburgers. That's all.
No, I've already been relieved of that. dude.
Oh, okay.
I think the health board had something to do with that decision, but they didn't want to tell me to my face. So again, yes, Saturday, September 9th, the grand opening of the new runway and the fly-in will take place at the Parry Sound Airport. I think all of council have now received invitations and it's open to the public as well. Thank you, Mr.
You're certainly welcome. So good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff and public. Thursday evening, the 20th of July, I attended the West Parry Sound District Museum monthly board meeting. This one was by Zoom. We continue to ensure that our governance policy is in order and in compliance with our corporation laws. Our financial report was received, manager's report received, discussion regarding some ideas about conservation care for the grader that we have on the property outside on Tower Hill. One of our members on board would like to advocate for volunteers to come forward and do some heavy work on bringing the grader up to a very nice antique style that people can come and admire. Attendance, annual pass holder sales, gift shop sales, significant following on social media, they're all up. The Indigenous Ingenuity exhibition arrived on July the 5th. It was up by the 6th. And also Science North held the grand opening on July 14th. And then on Friday, July the 21st at 1 p.m, I attended the ribbon cutting ceremony at the museum's reopening of the outdoor deck following significant renovations. As you know, the deck has been a popular spot for many celebrations, meetings, occasions, and we're pleased that it is once again open to the public. On hand was our MPP, Graydon Smith. Bert Liverance gifted a framed print of one of his paintings to Mr. Smith at that. I'd like to take this time to congratulate our neighbors in McKellar on celebrating their 150th anniversary. They're doing a number of things to commemorate that. And if you go to mckellar150.com, you can get more information. On the note of congratulations, that to the Festival of the Sound on the completion of another great season. And, you know, people often wonder, well, what does it do for the town? And I think we all know that that it does a lot. Met a lady this summer who makes her way from Scotland with her husband every year. Been doing that for umpteen years now to see the complete festival. So it certainly puts Parry Sound on the map. And we love it, we curse it. It's a blessing and a curse, but the traffic congestion, if you're make any kind of attempt to go through town, now, mind you, with Cascade Street being closed off, it didn't help. But I can't decide whether I'm happy to see the congestion because it's nice to see everybody around. But when you're in a hurry, you're in a hurry. But it's especially after COVID, it's nice to see everybody back and enjoying our area. And again, my congratulations to those who worked so hard to get Cascade Street open in time for the holiday weekend. And there were a lot of people around for the holiday. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Bielanski.
Thank you, your worship. Fairly quiet for me. On July the 20th, I attended a meeting of the District of Parry Sound Municipal Association. We spent a lot of time discussing our fall meeting, trying to get a speaker to come in. We've looked at various subjects that we wanted to speak about, and one of them is the Airbnb problem within the town. So we're going to get an expert up to speak on that. And other than that, it was pretty well business as usual, and that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashford.
Thank you. A few things going on in the last month. Two town events or two events that the town contributed to. One being the Poutine Fest mentioned, and then also the Tuesday night car rallies, which you have to miss to come here mostly. But the one last week included a whole bunch of the emergency services and a food drive for Harvest Share. And it was wonderful to see the kids kind of getting out and getting engaged in that kind of stuff. And I wanted to mention for both of those things, the Island Queen people helped quite a bit because they provide the space for the cruisers. And then the Poutine Fest, the parking's well marked, yet people will try to sneak into that parking lot over by the Island Queen that they own, and they had to have a staff member there making sure that the boat was able to load and do things properly. And it was one of the most full boats they were telling me for the year. But I did notice that they happily welcomed people as soon as the boat was loaded and all that was set to. So they really kind of contributed, I think, to both of those things being successful. I walked down from the Stocky Center with my family, but there were many people that were trying to find a little bit of a closer spot. And then that's everything for the last couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, the staff and the public. I've continued to make my presence known when the cruise ships have come in to visit. I have a sign welcoming people to Parry Sound, and it's nice to see the positive response. I did get one surprise, a previous ship, I guess a week ago, anyways, came in and the lady gave me a coin. When she gave me the coin, I thought, oh boy, wow, I'm getting a whole $1 for just being here. I thought I was a rich lady. I put it in my pocket right away because I thought I never get a tip. So anyways, later on, I decided to now take up this big prize of the whole $1 and look at it some more. And what it was a coin that was saying, thank you for being kind. And it had a smiley face on it. And I thought that was a really nice thing for anybody to do, because I think we all like to feel at times, thank you. And it was this lady's way of saying thank you. And it's certainly, for me, being Scottish, I've got to keep it now because I feel that it's maybe not the real $1, but it's actually worth more than $1 because it's saying thank you. I also attended the Community Policing Advisory Committee meeting. And I have to say that overall, the West Parry Sound OPP, the offenses of assault, threatening, and stalking are up, with property offenses down for the whole West Parry Sound area. But for the town of Parry Sound, our offenses of violent crime, property crime, and drug offenses are down. There are some drug offenses, and when there has been drug seizures, it included fentanyl, crack, and prescription drugs. Overall, the foot patrols in Parry Sound have been up for the quarter, and citizen self-reporting is increasing. So that's a positive that more citizens are using that service online. Joe Scally, who's the Community Policing Advisory Officer, has continued, as some of the other officers, to be involved in the Breakfast Club, the District Social Services Hub. He attends there, and there has been presentations, including that of human trafficking. And the last thing would be in reference to, again, you've heard me say this before, but it seems like we're slowly on target. The policing board, which is thought to be established overall within the province for municipalities, will possibly be either at the end of 2023 or early 2024 when the act comes into place. So at least I've been consistent in the information I've provided to you in reference to the policing boards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Keith. Council, staff, and public, July 9th, attended opening night for the Festival of the Sound and brought greetings from council to their first event. July 20th and 25th, I had meetings with regard to AMO's Social Policy and Human Services Transformation Task Force. As chair of this task force, the scope of the committee has been broadened. It was the Housing and Homelessness Task Force. Our first meetings that we have had have dealt with housing and homelessness to submit recommendations to the AMO board. And just as a side note, if someone thinks that housing is an issue, just an isolated issue here, they're extremely wrong. It's right across this province, right across this country, and in a number of places around the world. So we've got a lot of work to do, and we need to figure this out. But it's not unique to us. Just unfortunate that we do have an issue that we have to deal with. July 21st at 9:30 a.m. was at the beach with our MPP to hear about the Zero to Hero program that's in place, and our MPP was Graydon Smith. Was quite pleased to hear about the program and the impact that it's had. July 26th was the Pool Recreation Complex meeting. July 27th, I had an AMO executive meeting. July 29th, I attended the 150 celebrations for the McKellar Township. Great turnout. The horse statue made of scrap metal from farm pieces is absolutely amazing. I tell you, talk about a clever artistic mind to take all those pieces and put them together in like a horse. It was amazing. Some great work by Joyce Hopkins and all of the volunteers in putting this event together. Certainly congratulations to everyone involved and to McKellar Township for their 150th. August 1st, I met with town staff, Bob Corrigan, staff from the Pearl Mist, and our MP, Scott Aitchison at the town dock to discuss support from the federal government to repair and upgrade the wharf. And I think everyone agrees that something has to happen and need to be done. And I think staff have a meeting with DFO next week. The 24th. And our MP is right on side with us and knowing and seeing firsthand upgrades really need to be done down there. So that's my report. So on with the meeting. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor McCann, that Council of the Town of Parry Sound hereby appoints Kayla Stevenson to the board of the Parry Sound Downtown Business Association, DBA. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Borneman, that staff be directed to calculate and remit to all applicable unionized staff retroactive payments for any positions which have increased in banding due to the 2020 JJEC all job review, which was completed in May of 2023. And that such retroactive payments be made for the time period after the payroll deposit date of October 29th, 2021 to present date for the lead hand operations position and the mechanic HEO position from August 22nd, 2022 to present date for the IT support technician position and from November 1st, 2022 for the HEO positions, and that such payments be made no later than the payroll deposit date of September 29th, 2023. And HEO stands for Heavy Equipment Operator. Any discussion? No? All in favor? That's carried. Oh, great. Next is item 911, unveiling of the development application online mapping tool. And we have spokespersons are Jeremy Rand, Manager of Planning, Robert Ortega, Emily Holdsworth, GIS Technicians, and Megan Morrison, Planning Administrative Assistant. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. And there we go. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about an exciting project we are about to launch on the town's website, which is the development application mapping. And essentially, it's a mapping program showing active and approved development applications. So this project is a collaboration between the town's planning department and the GIS department. And here with me tonight are team members Rob Ortega and Emily Holdsworth, who are hiding in the back behind me here, and Megan Morrison. So I will note that this project certainly ended up being more encompassing than just some mapping, which you will see in the presentation. And before we get to the mapping, I did want to go over some of the considerations that were made in developing the mapping. And then we will be giving council a bit of a sneak preview of that mapping tool, and then we'll be available for any questions. So when we look at council's strategic plan, there are a number of drivers for this project. One of them being organizational excellence, which seeks to improve customer service and community engagement, as well as conducting continuous improvement review of processes. It also aims to increase engagement and communication with the business community. Staff, as council knows, regularly receive a number of inquiries on planning applications. And this project is a step toward being proactive and providing information to members of the public. And I want to emphasize here that this project is not about decreasing the number of phone calls that the planning department gets, but simply in giving the public different options for accessing that information on specific applications. Back in 2017, the town first published our zoning bylaw mapping, which did decrease the need to call the town to verify zoning. And I would note that information access like this does enable the public to do research on their own, which does a couple of things. It either reduces the need to call the town, or it helps facilitate that discussion with staff so that when they do connect with us, there's some information there already, and it leads to more productive conversations. The Planning Act does require staff to notify the public on most development related applications. And our current practice is to provide information on a notice as well as post a sign on the property. So this notice and posting provide a general description of the development, and then generally directs the public to contact the planning department for more information. We find that with active applications, especially contentious ones, there are opportunity for misinformation in the community. Having this information earlier on will help to combat this misinformation. Additionally, for taxpayers that do contact the town, as noted, sometimes there is a gap in timing from that originating request and the time that staff are able to release that information. So this tool, therefore, has really been designed to integrate background information and information that's being considered in real time so that it is available as soon as an application is ready to be circulated and will remain on the website well after a decision is made on an application. Before we started designing our development application mapping, we decided to have a look at what other municipalities were offering. Certainly a mixed bag, so to speak, and that some municipalities had no information at all, some had too much information, some had great information, and some were just easier to navigate than others. So the goal for us was to determine what would work for Parry Sound in terms of how we can leverage the information and tools that we have at our disposal, and then take the customer service piece to the next step, to the next level rather. There were a number of considerations for us in terms of assuring usability and accessibility. Some of these are required by the program we use, which is ArcGIS Online, and some are just done through best practices. We also needed to ensure that the web content accessibility guidelines were being met, and this is to ensure that things like font color and font and color options are accessible while still being visually attractive and usable. So we also selected colors that would not provide for subliminal misinformation, such as vibrant colors, for example, being mistaken for something more important than a muted color. And as a result, we did settle on a sort of simpler pastel color palette. Other things such as dynamic zoom utilization and integration with mobile capabilities was also considered. And we'll show some examples of these in a moment. Once planning came up with a vision for what the mapping would look like, we continued dialogue with the GIS department to start to design a program that was easy to use, easy to update, and one that would be integrated into our daily workflows. The GIS department through ArcGIS Online was able to create a customized tool for planning. And there were a number of changes and refinements throughout this process, but each request was taken constructively and at the end of the day really exceeded our expectations. And the end result was a mapping program that was quite easy to use and easy to update. And this was important as you know, we would be adding process to our workflow. So we wanted to make sure that additional process took into account the limited staff resources that we have available. So now we're going to take a minute to go through the mapping. I'm going to let Ms. Morrison drive. Here's our mapping module. So the components on the screen we see include the map itself. And the list on the bottom left are the list of planning application types that are available. And then we have specific applications on the right. And that's actually a large list that we could scroll through. You will note that the applications included are official plan amendments, zoning amendments, site plan agreements, and subdivision and condominium applications. You may note that there are other application types that are not included here, most notably minor variances and consent applications. And the reason they were excluded is the vast majority of those types of proposals are relatively minor. And we wanted to keep the mapping sort of as clean as possible, knowing that some of these other applications again, would have more of a lesser impact. And really the applications that would have a larger impact would paint a more realistic or accurate picture of the current and future development, include the 4 applications on the bottom. So we've set the mapping up so that you can view each or any one of these application types at a time. For example, you can display just official plan amendments, or official plan amendments and zoning amendments, or really any combination of these on the mapping at once. When you open up the legend, you can see that there is a unique symbol for each stage of the development application. And looking at site plan agreements, you can see that applications that have been deemed complete, approved with conditions, or fully approved. With other application types, what else do we have up here? Subdivision condo. So we have application deemed complete, public meeting scheduled, deferred to future meeting, approved with conditions, and fully approved. So this helps. We've also assigned a different symbology to each of the application types depending on the place in the process for that application. So on the right of the screen, you will see a list of specific applications that are being displayed. If you click on that application or the application in that window, it will move you to the map where that property is located and allow the user to click to see more information about that application. And conversely, if you search a property on the map, for example, if we go to like Waddick Street was a recent example, and we click on that property, information will pop up about that application. And this information includes application number, general description of the proposal, applicant name, all those types of things. And we've also provided a link to additional information. So if we click on background report, you'll be redirected to a page where the background reports can be accessed. So these background reports can include everything from the notices to technical studies or to any final approved documents. So generally what we were looking to do is create a tool that was accessible and usable by virtually anyone. For example, if you're a new investor to the area and you wanted to see what kinds of investment were going on, you could use this tool. If you're maybe a new resident in the community and wanted to check out your neighborhood, see if there's any development proposals, you can do that. Perhaps you're a resident who has heard rumors and wants to verify some information, that information is available. If you're an applicant and you want to see more information, it's available. Council members, staff. So we really wanted to make it all inclusive. And one other feature that we added, it was actually kind of last minute, but we decided that it would be important to be able to distinguish between active applications, complete applications, or be able to show all applications. This way, for example, if there's a site plan agreement or a subdivision agreement, sometimes these applications are multi-phased, or there may be implications in the future, or maybe someone just wants to access a previous report that was published as part of a planning application. These will be available online for some time after the applications has been decided on. I'm just going to go back to the slideshow here. So we are aiming to get the mapping live on the website next week, and all applications going back to 2014 will be included. And at this point, all background reports are digitized and available on the mapping back to 2020. And unfortunately, background information between 2014 and 2020 is somewhat limited, and will be limited on the mapping to the final approved outcome. For example, the zoning amendment application, for example, would have the final approved zoning bylaw, or if it's a subdivision, it'd be the final approved plan of subdivision. And with that, there'd be contact information should anyone require additional information from staff. And I would also note that we are making the public aware of this this portal through various means, including the news and notices page, including a splash alert on the website, and also inclusion of a note on our notice of public hearing, or any notices that we'll be sending out from the planning department, and that will guide members of the public to the online mapping for more information. GIS has also kindly created a user guide for members of the public to use. And as always, staff are available to help should there be any user questions. So while I helped to steer the project, the implementation team deserves a special thank you. The bar was certainly kept high for professionalism, communication, and focus on results. I am proud to be part of this team, and the results we were able to achieve in this project are indicative of the commitment to the team through, although it was a cross-departmental project, it was just done really well, and the outcome is certainly something that the town of Parry Sound can be proud of. The resulting mapping could not have been done without to this level otherwise. So I wanted to thank Dave and Cal for initiating the project, and specifically to the GIS department, Rob and Emily, whose professionalism, organization, and accommodating the demands of a picky planning department, and it's quite commendable. And also thank you to Megan Morrison for populating the database, testing, mapping, and who will be managing the updates. So we've created a fairly useful tool here, which will help us boost our customer service delivery and increase transparency here at the town of Parry Sound. And the usability and look of the tool should match or exceed anything that we've seen from other municipalities. So we're quite proud of that. We're also here for any questions that council may have.
Well done. Yeah, well done. Councilor McCann.
Yeah, indeed. Wow, is the operative word here. Fantastic. A lot goes into that. So thank you and congratulations. Are there other municipalities in this neck of the province that are using this sort of technology? That's one question.
You don't have any specifics. We came across a few through your worship, my apologies. I can't recall the municipalities in the area specifically that are using it. There weren't as many in the smaller rural areas. Certainly larger municipalities are using it. Most cities, it was certainly a mixed bag for sure. But yeah, my apologies. I can't quite think of what municipalities in the immediate vicinity were using it, but we're certainly on the leading edge in this area. Even in Muskoka, there were a few municipalities that were utilizing it, but we did find that, there was a case of too much information that was being shown.
Sure.
So we felt like we had a pretty good balance here.
So I think I noticed that some of the Parry Sound Geography Network was layered in there. Am I correct? Is that all part of the same project, or how does that sort of infused or merged together?
Through your worship, that's correct. So a lot of the base information would be taken from the West Parry Sound Geographic Network. I didn't show the dynamic zoom piece, but as you zoom in, there's different information that pops up, such as aerial photography, property boundaries, labels and things like that, that help the user navigate through. And all of that is taken from the West Parry Sound Geographic Network.
Well, great. And even as council members, when we get questions from residents about property and lines and such, I've often found the Geographic Network site very helpful, and I'm sure that this will just make it that much more beneficial for us. So again, thank you and congratulations.
Anyone else? Council Borneman?
I was just gonna say, we've come a long way in the past number of years. This is a really nice addition to the transparency portfolio. Everybody in town can check out what's going on. So thank you for the work that you've put into this.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is a great presentation, a great tool. A few years ago, just following up on Councillor McCann's comment, we submitted on behalf of the municipalities that are part of the West Parry Sound Geographic Network, that project to MISA, Municipal Information System Association, and won an award. And I'm just wondering if we, not today necessarily, but think about this project, if it's that unique for particularly smaller municipalities, submitting it to MISA, perhaps for an award again, and get that recognition.
That would be good.
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly if there, or your worship, certainly if there's an opportunity to submit, sounds like we're well aware of that program, so
Okay,
I'll look into it. Thank you.
good. All right. Anything else? Anyway, again, thank you very much. That is truly amazing. And thank you all for your collective effort in putting that together and making it all work. Yeah. Nice to be cutting edge. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that council received the report on public washroom hours for information. Any comments? Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've read the report and I do have some comments about the report. I believe that the public washrooms should be the hours of operation, the opening and the closing of hours should be consistent for all the washrooms. The strategic action plan, which is on our tonight's agenda, noted that in the survey, and of course that's 9.2.1, which will probably be reviewed next, indicates anyways of priorities, a sense of community, the importance people have for leisure, opportunities, walkability, the parks and public spaces. All those things, there's times that you need the use of a washroom. In observation, I note that in our community, the tourism is increasing. The number of cruise ships that are coming in, we already see that and we recognize that because we're looking at docks and the dock and what can we do what can be done to improve that dock. So we know that when people are walking around, again, there's a need for the use of washrooms. The use of the fitness trail, well, we see that, I know that the public washroom and in this report, it suggests now that it's possible, and I realized there was a contract with the town dock washroom, that it will be open now to 6:30. I think that's a start, but I think the hours need to be longer than that. Our time of operation is May, where I think there's a lot of visiting, and we have daylight hours between May and Thanksgiving, and I think we need to have those washrooms more accessible to people. We want people to spend money, we want people to be interested in our community, but when you gotta go and there's no place to go, I can assure you that you are gonna go, but it means leave your community, and that's not the way you want your money spent, and it's not the way I think you want information on social media, etc. I believe that to do what I would be thinking of is, yes, it's going to cost us more money, but there's times you have to bite the bullet, so to speak, and you have to spend the money. If we need to spend money on video cameras to assist with deterring negative behavior, we need to do that. We need to be more innovative. If that means, for example, I think, or I believe that VOCC staff, if they can say close not just the town dock washroom, but also the public washroom downtown, if those hours, again, because right now the hours are closing at 4 o'clock. Well, 4 o'clock just don't cut it for people in the community. So I think that they need to be open longer. And so if we can be innovative and perhaps one of the staff can close that washroom later on at night and then cleaning be done in the morning, that's the way to go about it. But I think we have the ability to do things different, to get innovative, to be proactive. And I am also suggesting that we look at, as I said, a consistent time and a consistent closing time to me for the summer, because that's what I'm looking at between May and Thanksgiving. I would say be 10 p.m. Therefore, as a result of some of the issues that I brought forth here, I am moving that staff prepare a report for council advising how the public washrooms can be open for a longer period of time, providing possibilities and the costs involved.
Second that. Okay. All right. Council McCann.
Thank you. Well, it's ironic that I had to go to the washroom when this came up. So yeah, this has been a bone of contention, and I understand the logistics of trying to schedule staff and what it costs, and shortage of labor and everything that comes into play with that. But the public, they don't know, they don't see it, and they don't care. If we're going to be a tourist-oriented community, and I think we are, then we have to go the full length. And I think that the washrooms should be open till at least 9 o'clock at night. Now, the town docks and the Big Sound Marina are under a management contract, and perhaps maybe that contract needs to be looked at in the future. But I just think that it definitely, a couple of weekends ago, we were down at the town dock. A woman and her young girl needed to use the washroom and they were locked. And the individual had more than a few unpleasant comments to make about the town. She didn't know that it was contracted out, and she didn't care. Her little girl had to use the washroom, and that's all that was important to her. So I hope that, being a tourist-oriented town, Councillor Keith said it all, that we need to do what we can to be organized and get the logistics in order so that we can be all that we can to the people that visit our area.
Any further comments on the direction, since the direction's been made? Councillor Ashford and then Councillor Bolesky.
I was hoping, in the interest of having all the information on the table, if we could kind of outline, like, my concern a little bit with the discussion that's kind of gone on is asking a private company, to provide a public service that may be, as some of the issues have come, maybe causing them to have a profitability issue, or stressing their staff and making a staff member stay late. You could lose a staff member in this day and age. So I was hoping maybe if we could get a little bit of information on how exactly the contract works for that particular washroom, and then what we would have to do as far to fulfill our responsibility. I think it's been well said that there may be money or different things involved. Just as we're asking for a report back on this, could we maybe get a little bit of information about how it works currently?
Go ahead, Chief Thompson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There, as has been mentioned a couple times already by council, there is a management contract for the town docks, and that includes the operations of the washrooms. That was done intentionally at the time to streamline the processes and things of that nature. That contract runs for one more year before it expires, and that's for 2024, summer of 2024, expiring, I think in October, late October of 2024. As the report mentions, the operation of the washrooms through the proposal, and the proposal was accepted, recommended by staff and approved by council, that it's tied to the kiosk hours. Currently, the business that's operating the kiosk is a coffee shop that operates till 5 p.m. daily. In discussions with the operator, they were able to increase the hours to 6:30 due to the staff that's in place at Big Sound Marina. Beyond that would require some negotiations with the operator. That is not out of the realm of possibility. The operator actually has indicated that they'd be, happy to negotiate extensions of those hours, and are willing to talk about that. So it is feasible and can be done to have those negotiations, have some amendments made to the contract to account for that. Right now, the operator is in compliance with the operating agreement and have extended us some current relief that was outlined. So staff can further those discussions and find out pricing for what that would cost if council so wishes.
Councilor McCann.
Thank you for that, Chief Thompson.
Hang on, Councilor McCann.
Sure.
Actually, Councilor Bolesky was after Councilor Ashford. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have everything pretty well that I want to say has been said. The public washrooms are a service to our community. And the same as, I'm not going to compare them to a library or anything, but that is a service to our community that we need to keep open. I agree that they should stay open till probably 9, maybe a little later. The contract, when it comes up next year, I'm sure it can be written in the contract that the hours of operation that you want. Contracts are negotiable. I pretty well said what I wanted to say, and everybody else said it anyway ahead of me, but they are very important. We keep them open, and whatever we need to do and look at to keep them open. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McCann.
Thank you. So a couple of comments then. So what this report is on the Waterfront Advisory Committee's radar. And in fact, we're meeting this week, and it's something that will come up. Mr. Thompson and I had a conversation about a week or so ago, and I think back when the contract was written for the current operator, we had at that time, our needs were met, but I think we all agree that we're growing and we're seeing an increase in traffic and tourism, certainly on the cruise boat cruise that. So it might be time to revisit what our needs are as we move forward and making decisions about managing the waterfront. Mr. Thompson, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you did say something about the washrooms being tied in with the kiosk operators. But basically at the end of the day, it's under the responsibility of the contractor, whether or not he decides to keep those washrooms open. He's made an arrangement with the kiosk operator, but that's a tie-in that he's made, not the town has made.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The proposal that was submitted by the operator indicated that the washrooms would be open in conjunction with the hours of the kiosk. So it is a commitment that the town made when we accepted the proposal, because that's what we did when we executed the agreement, was we accepted the proposal as submitted. And that was how the proposal suggested that the washrooms would be operated. When we put out the RFP, that was one of the questions. Explain to us how you're going to provide for the washrooms to be operated. And the successful proposal indicated that they would be tied to the hours of the operation of the kiosk.
Okay.
That's how they were going to be managed.
So by kiosk, you're talking about the operation that's adjacent to the washrooms and showers, not the portable structures that are down there for the summer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. And when I talk about the kiosk, I mean what is currently a coffee shop. Previous season it was Lorraine's Boutique, but it's tied to the functioning of that kiosk, not the huts.
Okay, well, I think that just proves our point that I think we've outgrown, we're growing and we need to revisit our needs. But thank you.
Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you. Just for clarification, and I agree, I think it's very important, the waterfront and the washroom down at the Ton Dock, but I'm also asking for what I brought forth for moving of all three washrooms, because I understand the washroom at Wabano Beach, and I confirmed that today, closes at 10 p.m. So I'm just saying, if we were consistent on all three washrooms, it probably would be less confusing to anybody who is visiting or anybody who's walking, because now you've got a time in your head. And as indicated a moment ago, I am hoping that whatever report is prepared, there can be some suggestions, because I'm looking at innovative of time and costs per time. So there may be a couple of suggestions there as to what the cost will be if the washrooms close, say at 9 o'clock, if they close at 10 o'clock, or whatever it is, and also how this can be done. But I truly believe it's doable. And I do believe that, as I just heard a minute ago from Mr. Thompson, I do believe there's some way that a washroom, even down at the town dock, can be open from whatever, 6:30 to whatever that closing time is. There's a way that it can be done. Thank you.
Anything further? I'm going to call my own point of order here, because we have the original resolution that needs to be dealt with, which was basically for information gathering. So is there any further comment on the information piece? Seeing none, all in favor then? And that's carried. And then the direction, we exhausted the it was seconded by Councillor Ashford. Yeah. Anyway, all in favor of direction then? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Borneman, that council, the town of Parry Sound adopt strategic plan 2023 as a compendium to the 2020-2030 strategic plan as updated. Discussion. I do have a question right off the bat. Since we put this back, did any members of the public comment on further on the strategic plan?
Through the mayor, yes, at the July 4th council meeting, staff were asked to put it out for additional comments. Since that time, none have been received. Staff did put a notice on the website and the media headline that we were looking for additional comments, but we didn't get any in. So we tried to elicit comments, but none were received. So the plan as presented at July 4th is back on the agenda this evening.
Councillor Ashford.
I think unfortunately the team has left, but the work that the group did earlier tied to the strategic plan there was a very good example of how the strategic plan is driving excellence in the organization. I was hoping that maybe we could talk a little bit more about next steps now that the strategic plan is kind of in place, and we're looking at what we're going to do if we approve this this compendium or update. What kind of things happen next as we go forward?
Mr. Harris, yeah. Through the mayor, Next steps, once it's approved, is to incorporate these action items, and there's 28 of them, into our quarterly reporting. So that's how we'll communicate that with staff. We report back to council quarterly. That's available to the public, and you can track progress, quarter over quarter. I think again, reporting back and making this a living document, and your example or referencing the presentation that was done, that it needs to be part of our everyday culture when we're doing reports, when we're making decisions. The strategic plan has to be part of that decision-making process, and the quarterly reporting keeps it in front of all of us.
Any further questions, comments? No? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And I would like to thank all those members of the public that did contribute, and staff and everyone in council for contributing to the update. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Ashford, that in accordance with the Parry Sound Downtown Business Association's recommendation of May 12th, 2023, council take no action on changing the DBA/BIA boundary, and that staff be directed to provide this response to Jeff Quathmer, owner of Bayside Inn. Any discussion? Councillor McCann?
Well, I think maybe this is worth a bit of a discussion or explanation from Ms. Johnson as to the reasoning behind this decision.
Through your worship, I would say that the DBA, Downtown Business Association, really drives recommendations regarding the boundary. And that was clear from the 2013 report and any research that I've done, back in the early days in the 70s when the DBAs were formed throughout Ontario. It's being driven by downtown business owners. So the DBA has a board. The board reviewed the request by a member who is in the existing DBA to be removed from the DBA. They considered that request in May. I'm not privy to, the conversations. There may be a member of council, if a member of council was at the meeting, there may be more information to provide. But basically the DBA indicated that they don't wish to open up the boundary discussion now. If at some time in the future they do consider opening the boundaries, and there may be reasons to open it aside from this particular request, that they would consider the request for Bayside Inn to be removed.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councillor McDonald?
I can add just a little bit, sitting on the board with the DBA, that it is quite a big process to redraw the boundaries. So at this point, yeah, they're not interested in pursuing that any further.
Anything further? No. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Boleski, that council hereby dissolves the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Exhibition Ad Hoc Advisory Committee as established by Resolution 2021-149, its mandate having been completed. Discussion? All in favor? Well, it's carried. Moved by Councillor Boleski, second by Councillor Ashford, the council approved the 2023 Municipal Assistance Program allocations per attachment 1, Schedule A. And I know it's in the report. It was for the jumpers.
We'll print that out and attach it.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the amount was. And it was for Georgian jumpers? Yeah, it was for the Georgian jumpers and it was $1,300. $1,300 a donation to them. Or grant. Anything further on this one? All in favor? That's carried. Oh, Council Barney.
Just that we should wish those young folks good luck.
Oh,
in
yeah.
there as they move forward.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about something that's a lot of work, boy. Good cardio. Anyway, moved by Counselor Bileski and seconded by Counselor Ashford that upon the recommendation of staff, council award the purchase of a new electric ice resurfacer to Ingo Equipment Sales Incorporated in the amount of $165,000, excluding HST and excluding the trade-in value, this being the most appropriate of qualified bids received in terms of price, delivery, and specifications. Discussion? Counselor, I know Counselor Keith has a question, but I think let her go first. Okay.
Yes, my question is, if this is approved of tonight, what is the average length of time this machine should be able to operate, including the battery? How long is the warranty for, or how long is the battery expected to last?
Through your worship. So the batteries are warranted for 5 years. We made the inquiries. I spoke to an organization that actually runs 24 of these machines. They have since 2015. And we discussed our operation in particular. This is more of a commercial operation that operates 56 ice pads around North America. In our operation, they've indicated that they're seeing upwards of 10 years in battery life in operations similar to ours, which is a lot less intensive than they're used to as an organization. So a single pad, not a hugely intensive use. They're seeing the batteries lasting as long as 10 years. They are warranted for 5 though.
So just for clarification, so when the battery does die, then I take it, then we again can take it for recycling where we for other batteries, etc. Yeah, does it get disposed, so to speak, at the same place, or what happens?
Through your worship. So the batteries are recyclable. And we did inquire as to the replacement cost, and that is $16,000 right now for that equivalent battery, which we would factor into the life cycle costing. What I was just going to add, in some further conversations with this particular company, we had some specifications in the information we sent out initially, in regards to asking for stainless steel installation of water tanks. They came back to us and said, you know, if we choose to go with their standard, they actually offer polyethylene in one of the tanks, which is non-corrosive at all, or non-corrodable, as a plastic tank. And the other tank they offer, it has 4 layers of galvanizing and powder coating, which they said is an equivalent resistance to corrosion as stainless steel. And overall, we could save $10,000 if we chose to go with their standard options versus those upgraded options. So I would offer that. It sounds to me like that's a very beneficial thing for us to consider if we wanted to have a slight amendment to that resolution to allow us to accept the standard offering at a reduction of $10,000.
Councilor Keith.
I sure would move for that amendment. Because stainless steel, well, from what he's saying, and I know from other experiences, sometimes stainless steel just looks pretty, but we don't want pretty.
Were you seconding that, Councilor McCann?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, no, I was gonna say, no trade-in value. Did they take back the,
Well, I've got direction on the floor, okay? And I thought you were seconding Councilor Keith's.
oh, well, I can second. Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Yeah, Councilor, sorry. Mr. Kearns is going to give you the direction.
Okay,
On that, and then we'll deal with the amendment.
okay.
That staff be authorized to accept the standard offerings of water tanks on the Ice Wolf resurfacer at a reduction of $10,000.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment. We're gonna talk about the amendment.
Well, I guess so. I just was wondering about the excluding trade-in value.
That's not the amendment.
That's not the amendment.
The amendment is the standard.
Okay, all right.
Process.
I just thought maybe it was all tied in together.
No more discussion on the amendment? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Counselor McCann, you can talk about
Okay,
trade-in value now.
okay, yeah. So there's no value on, and but do they take back the old machine then and dispose of it properly?
Through your worship, just for clarification, there is a $15,000 trade-in value on the
Yeah.
the original price
Oh,
was
okay.
165. So once the trade-in is removed, the total came to 150. was
Oh,
the
I see.
indication
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
So there is certainly a trade-in value on the.
Well,
on the
that's good to
equipment.
know. Okay.
Any further discussion on the item as amended? Counselor Boleski.
Your worship, on this is the perfect spot. to use the electrification. Spent a lot of time in the rain. And gas powered. Can't go by, and then it went to natural gas vehicles. This is the perfect example where I've actually seen mature ones, earlier ones, where they ran forward and seen it.
Really? Okay,
This is just a great application.
okay. Okay, thank you. There's nothing further, all in favor? And that's carried. As amended.
So,
Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Keith, that upon the recommendation of Tatham Engineering, council award the tender to Wayne Hall Construction Incorporated in the amount of $466,554.27, excluding HST. This being the only qualified bid received, and that the additional funding for the be allocated from the Ontario Community Infrastructure Funds. Mr. Bonazza, anything you want to add?
I can just add, it's one of our main corridors, like for our storm sewer for Isabella Street, and it goes down through actually the front lot of 70 and Isabella, so it has failed at this time, so we looked at rebuilding it through just that area. Just the cold nose on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Councillor Boleski and then Councillor Ashford after that.
thank you, through you, your worship. This is the huge crossover line from the original. In the budget, 200,000, something like that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so this was not accounted for. This was a failure that we found after the fact. We put that capital aside for upgrades that we were looking in certain areas. This was something that happened outside the scope of what we budgeted for capital wise.
So we're 260 some thousand over, gonna be over, and I understand these things happen, but just, that's how it happened, wasn't it? You found things, did Tatum not notice that these things were possible? When they did the pre-engineering on it? Just asked.
I believe back in the day as well, we didn't even know that we had this deed easement or this through the municipal act, like the deed easement going through their property. and we found out about this when the collapse happened. That it was not private infrastructure. Well, not private infrastructure through there, that it was actually municipally owned through there, through the deed easement process, so.
So the mistake is in the planning, I guess. Okay, one other one, is there, when we do these contracts, on all contracts like this, there is a bond put up, performance bond?
Yes. Oh. Gee, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Great, that's it for me.
Counselor Ashford?
My concern with it was with the deemed easement. Is it, what is that, how exactly does that work? And do we now, like, we're replacing it? Do we now have an easement to do this, maintain this in the future at this point?
I'll defer that to Mr. Kearns.
Through your worship. So either way, actually, there's a section under the Municipal Act, and it is actually a very appropriate section under the Municipal Act, especially for our circumstances, that allows for a deemed easement where municipal infrastructure exists. That can sometimes include open ditches in terms of water courses and conveying stormwater. We did confirm either way. I mean, our intention is to move forward with establishing a formal easement so that there is no loss of knowledge going forward. And just wanted to clarify that previously this was unknown as municipal infrastructure. So this process where we got a call about stormwater, started to look into it. It does take a significant flow as Mr. Bonanza indicated, and it is readily evident that it was municipally installed to service the municipal stormwater system. And that's where the deemed easement under the specific section under the Municipal Act. And we have had several conversations about the same topic with our legal firm to confirm that.
Counselor Barnum.
This is a relatively small piece of pipe that's being replaced. Through the exploration, was other camera work done? Do we know, do we have larger problems at either end or both ends of this? Or, you know, I'm looking forward to next year's budget. Is there a tomato surprise waiting for us there too? Or is this a one-off?
Through your worship, I'll take that. I won't commit to it being a one-off. Because we don't know what we don't know right now. I'm sure there are other sections of town that have infrastructure that we are unaware of. As we find them, now there are issues. This storm sewer feeds towards Hillcrest. And we have had conversations about the condition of Hillcrest and that entire corridor right down to the river. So this is a collapse, it's an emergency situation. That doesn't mean that this will be redundant in doing further work for sure. So this will feed into further systems, but council will see some numbers coming forward for that other work in the future.
Follow-up.
No, it's not a follow-up, it's a
Oh.
statement. You know, a number of us have lobbied with respect to the state of Hillcrest in the past, so maybe this gets us closer to some kind of proper upgrades there, even though it won't be pretty.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'll try and be very quick. Just in the interest, that $200,000 that we had allocated in the budget for capital was for work on other sections of storm that we know we have issues. So that is work that will be rescheduled hopefully next year. Not just, we can't indefinitely postpone that work. So I just wanted to make sure that council was aware that for this year, the priorities changed, but that didn't remove those others from the list going forward. So.
Councilor McCann.
I'd just like to confirm what Mr. Curtin said about the fact that, and we sat here on council and heard of in other situations where we've discovered infrastructure on private property, certainly unknown to the owners. So in addition to calling before you dig, maybe you might want to get your hands on a metal detector, search your property before you go ahead as well. But it doesn't surprise me anymore when we find out about this kind of stuff.
Okay, anything further? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Counselor Bileski. Go ahead. Oh, your microphone.
I might have been a little confused and didn't read it all properly. So this 200,000 that was in the budget was actually going to be earmarked for another, and then this one has come up in the meantime. Okay, didn't realize that. Thanks.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. All in favor now? Good, thank you, it's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann, that upon the recommendation of Tatham Engineering Council award the tender to Royal Crown Construction in the amount of $209,680.25, excluding HST. This being the lowest of 3 qualified bids received, and that the additional funding be allocated from the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. Discussion. Councillor Borneman.
Just to point out that this is a situation exactly as we discussed before with the Salt Dock Road thing, where we insisted that the folks at Avery Court and Thunder Creek install sidewalks, and now we're catching up, joining their sidewalks to our existing sidewalks.
Councillor Ashford.
I just wanted to ask a question to confirm or to help maybe prevent there being an issue going forward. That with the increase in density and the amount of units going in that area, that the road is going to remain wide enough for traffic flow and people to be able to use on-site parking and different things like that. And I just kind of cite the Wabick Street example where you could kind of have a family meal on Wabick Street and put a couple cars in your parking spot, and then your driveway, and then a couple on the road, and you'd be fine for dinner. Where now, if you're going to a family dinner on Wabick Street, you're walking up from the beach, or you're walking up from the Coast Guard or something to try to get yourself in a spot. So I would expect traffic to increase on Winifred as the developments continue, if an apartment building goes in and those kind of things. Is our sidewalk, is this work going to end up creating a situation where we have kind of a decreased level of service in the area with parking, with those kind of things?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe when we looked at the street as a whole, it wouldn't be affected due to the fact when we're adding the sidewalk to the side, we strategically put it down. So it's going to come down from Avery Court down the west side until you hit Kitchener. You'll be crossing at Kitchener and going on the east side down to Isabella. That is due to the fact to give enough room for parking, as we couldn't allow it to go on the west side at the bottom because people wouldn't have enough room in their driveways. So in adding all this, we're not losing any of the roadway. We're actually adding, because we own the property adjacent. So we'll be adding the sidewalk to the road, so we won't be losing any space or volume. And we'll be probably, excuse me, at the end of the day, making more space for adequate car and pedestrian traffic going down that road. We will be, excuse me, adding a 4-way stop as well in this plan on Kitchener Avenue as well, if that bylaw is passed tonight.
Councillor Keith and then Councillor Borneman.
Yes, thank you. What I was just wondering is we've heard concerns in previous council meetings regarding parking. And it hit me when we're talking about adding the sidewalk there. Are we adding a grass boulevard, or are we looking at something paved? So if there is an issue down the road, there is maybe a spot somebody can wiggle a vehicle. What's the scoop, please?
Doing down this through you, Mr. Mayor, down through this stretch of road, due to our limits and where the houses are placed, we do not have a boulevard separating the roadway and the sidewalk. It'll be running right along the sidewalk. We will have a gutter in between. It will be mountable as well, so if someone has an emergency, has to get off, they can. But
just due to the logistics of that street and what the town owns.
Counselor Barnman.
Mr. Bonanza, did you say there'd be a four-way stop at Kitchener's?
That is, through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay,
If the bylaw is passed tonight.
thank you.
Mr. Kearns.
Sorry, your worship, just to add, it is later in the agenda, slightly later. And the reasoning is to avoid a mid-block crosswalk that would require lights and signals when it's at a controlled intersection. Traffic needs to stop, crosswalks are installed, and traffic yields to the pedestrian at that point.
Counselor Barnman.
You know, and I don't know where it all stands, but I know the sidewalk further up is on currently on the east side of the roadway as you're up in the Thunder Creek thing, and then it crosses to the west side of the roadway as you're nearing Avery Court. Now we're gonna cross back over at some point at Kitchener. I just want to be sure that we're laying this out, you know, in a reasonable way as we, somebody, I think it was Councillor Ashford pointed out, traffic levels up through there are bound to increase over time, it seems. So let's do this once and do it right, make it safe and fair for everyone rather than changing down the road somehow.
Mr. Kearns.
Just for clarity, the area that Councillor Borneman is referring to is not municipal roadway. It's not been assumed by the municipality. So the configuration of the sidewalk within the municipal maintained road allowance, as Mr. Bonanza pointed out, it's necessitated, that layout is necessitated by the location of the buildings in relation to the road allowance configuration. There's just not room on the west side to carry that sidewalk straight down to Isabella. That would have been ideal. However, it would have cut through the very center of everyone's driveway and they would not have any room for a car. So logistically, the only solution, the best solution, is to have that four-way stop installed at Kitchener Avenue, which will also encourage positive driving speeds along there.
Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Ashford, the bylaw number 2023-7363 being about to amend the bylaw 2019-6912. The parking and traffic control bylaw to include traffic control devices on Winifred Avenue be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Ashford, the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed and sealed. Any comment? I know we were just talking about it, so no comment? All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Borneman. Whereas over 800 children under the age of 15 are diagnosed with cancer each year in Canada, and whereas 1 in 330 children will be diagnosed with cancer before their 18th birthday, and whereas childhood cancer is the #1 cause of death by disease of Canadian children, and whereas there are over 200 types of childhood cancers, not including subtypes, mutations, and whereas childhood cancer places a tremendous financial burden on families, and whereas over 75% of childhood cancer survivors live with at least one chronic health condition, and a third of these are severe or life-threatening. And whereas little is known about what causes childhood cancer, which limits the opportunities for prevention. And whereas additional awareness and funding for childhood cancer is needed, as only 5 cents from every research dollar goes towards childhood cancer research. And whereas annually September is officially recognized as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month by the province of Ontario. Now therefore, the Council of the Town of Parry Sound hereby proclaims September 1st to 30th, 2023 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in the town of Parry Sound. Any comments? All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman and seconded by Councillor McCann, that council, the town of Parry Sound hereby supports the hosting of the Ontario Small Urban Municipalities, or otherwise known as OSM Conference in Parry Sound in either 2025 or 2026. So I can give you some background on it. I am on the Small Urban Municipal Committee. We have had the Small Urban Conference here before. And next year's conference is in Aurelia. Collingwood has just put in an application. The committee will be meeting in Ottawa, or not Ottawa, but London at the AMO conference. And they'll be taking in recommendations for other communities that might be interested in hosting. So I know they have one application from Collingwood. And we have run this by the Economic Development Department, which would be the department that would be handling a lot of the legwork for the conference. And they're suggesting 2026. So I can certainly take a look at having that discussion while I'm in London at that meeting. So it's a good conference. You know, you'll get a few hundred people here. And it's over 3 days. So it's good for the community, like the Phenom Conference. Brings people in, they do some shopping. Hotels are full, restaurants are full, and it's good for the community. Anyway, any comments? It's late April, early May. Yeah. Just before Phenom, yeah. Okay. At that time of the year when people are looking to have some extra business. All right, all in favor then? And that's carried. Thank you. If I can get a copy of that, or just send that off to Larry. You've got his email, right? Larry McCabe's, yeah. Moved by Council McDonald, second by Council McCann, the bylaw number 2023-7364 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a limiting distance agreement with 2282722 Ontario Limited, 81 North Tuttle Street, and 799200 Ontario Limited, 75 North Tuttle Street, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time passed, signed and sealed. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
So I would ask Mr. Vandermeer then, what happened here that this is all before us this evening? Was there this a mistake or hindsight, or somebody missed something?
Thanks, through you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, I started late 2020 and this project had just gotten underway. So it was mid-construction. Now that it's nearing the end of the construction, they're kind of finalizing the construction details. So this was one item that has kind of been on the side burner, looking for different options for them to achieve compliance, basically. And so they have utilized a section in the building code that allows for this. Not a property line adjustment, but kind of a building setback line adjustment.
So I gather then the neighbor is complicit with this in going forward. Does this set a precedent for us in any way, shape or form?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, actually, no, to answer your first question, the adjacent property owner is the same owner. So it actually works out fairly well. This tends to come up about, every 5 to 10 years or so. It may come up more often in the future with the more development, people wanting to build out on their lots. But we do have a few in the recent past, I guess, that was outlined to me by the former CBO. We've got one on Joseph Street, William Street, Bowes Street. So we do have some of these agreements already in place.
So these would be the same owner, but different parcels of land, then I think you're saying? Or just on the same property, just,
Yes, so in this particular case, it's two separate conveyable parcels,
Mhm.
just happen to be owned by the same person, but under two different Ontario limited business numbers. So it's kind of two different owners.
okay,
So we're just following the outline.
okay, thank you.
Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Counselor Keith, second by Counselor Ashford, that bylaw number 2023-7365 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation for approval of the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame curatorial and collection intern be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Counselor Keith, second by Counselor Ashford, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Council Borman, or are you just, okay? No, all in favor then? And that's carried. Moved by Councilor McDonald, second by Councilor Borneman, that bylaw number 2023-7366 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered as read a first time. All in favor? Carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councilor Borneman, second by Councilor McDonald, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? That's carried. So prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, September the 5th at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Seguin Street, entrance via Gibson Street, and will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. And for Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.